This week we're leaving the UK, we're off to Australia. It's an extreme BDSM case, but it's certainly not the 50 Shades of Grey defence case. Disclaimers before we start are always a must. This is a true crime, it involves real people, they have real families, so please be careful when you share it and comment, but I do want you to share and comment. Just be sensitive. Additionally, this is an ongoing case. It's had one side plead guilty, and the other side's not going to be on trial till summer. So, when I say allegedly, I mean allegedly. In 2004, Heide Victoria Bos got a higher national diploma for hairdressing, beauty and salon management from Dundee and Angus College. She then went on to be a salon manager in Melbourne, and she did that until 2010. Then she changed companies and worked as a colour specialist and stylist. 2 years later, in 2012, early 2013, Heide opened her own salon, called Marquis Air. That were on Sydney Road in Brunswick, Melbourne. Now, it's no secret that there are absolutely thousands of dating sites online. With fierce competition, these sites turn to focusing their energy on trying to corner a market of an individual niche. And from a business standpoint, that was quite an inevitable thing to happen. If you aren't into BDSM, you probably won't know one of the most popular niche sites on the entire internet. It's also arguably most different from the rest. It's FetLife. Founded in 2008 with over 7 million users, FetLife is self-dubbed the most popular social network for the BDSM, fetish and kinky community. And I think we'll leave it there. That's all we really need to know. And it was on this website that 37-year-old Heide Victoria Bos met 48-year-old Stuart. Heide used the handle Hedonistic Siren, while Stuart used the handle Slave P Into. I think you can see their preferred roles by the handles, but in her profile, Heide described herself as a dom, who is above you in every single way possible. Going on to add, if you honestly believe I would be contented by simply pushing you or having you do my dishes, then you are truly deluded, and entirely living a fantasy of your own making. You are pathetic scrap of an excuse. Meanwhile, Stuart's profile showed that he prided himself on serving his masters, which includes being a personal play toy, cook, cleaner, masseuse, handyman, builder, mechanic, among other things. Heide and Stuart hadn't been together all that long. It had apparently only been weeks, but he was already very committed and a loyal slave. That much so, he was already paying for his master's rent. But for Heide, that wasn't enough. Anybody who has money can pay for things. She needed him to prove his loyalty and devotion for his mistress. In messages, she told him, "You will please your queen," and "You will prove your loyalty." Now we've took a brief look at their relationship, we ought to discuss Nicholas Cameron. Nicholas and Heide had been in a volatile on-off relationship for some time, which included verbal abuse on both sides and periods of estrangement. Nicholas's dad described him as a good football player, horse rider and snowboarder, a man who loved a prank and was loyal to his mates. At this time, he was also in a relationship to a woman who was carrying his baby. Heide had told her slave Stuart about Nicholas. In text messages, she said, "I love that dumb cunt, but I hate him for treating me like he has." She went on to tell him that Nicholas had made her feel insecure, and that he was an ungrateful fuckwit and a fuckface loser. Then, in July 2021, Heide concocted a plan to get Nicholas Cameron out of their life for good. After all, she didn't have to do anything. She had a loyal slave who was desperate to prove his loyalty. On the 1st of July 2021, Stuart visited Heide in her Latrobe Street apartment, where a plan to physically confront Cameron was allegedly first raised. She asked Stuart if it were possible to get someone to leave town and not come back. If he could get Nicholas Cameron to leave town and not come back. He said that he'd done it before and it could be very persuasive and that he would be hurt and in pain, but he would leave within 24 hours. At some point, Nicholas had accused Heide of robbing him and branding her a master slut and manipulator. I'm sure I read somewhere that she showed Stuart those messages. Either which way, it was decided Heide would provide Stuart with the detailed instructions of how to get access to Nicholas's complex, including how to swipe his keys and where he kept several safes. On the 4th of July 2021, Stewart allegedly went to where Nicholas lived, and he accessed the building. He removed a weapon from his backpack and stood aside, waiting for Nicholas to appear from inside. He did not enter the apartment at any point. Instead, he remained in and around the building for several hours, just waiting. But Nicholas never did appear. So a couple days later, on the 8th of July, as Stewart allegedly visited the apartment again and watched Cameron take out the dog, and Heide messaged Stewart while he was there saying, "I wish I could come and give this cunt a good kick." And it's the next day that the police allege that Stewart went to Nicholas's house for the third time. And it was the day after that the police allege Stewart went to Nicholas's home. He entered the building's car park and waited for Nicholas Cameron to leave his apartment with his little white terrier dog named Mister. And Nicholas did leave the apartment with Mister, and Stewart allegedly took the opportunity to ambush Nicholas in the apartment's complex car park. At that point, Stewart allegedly leapt from the shadows with a hammer and a knife, hitting him over the head and stabbing him in the face and stomach. The attack lasted for 11 minutes. Nicholas's neighbours heard yells for help, but it was too late. 39-year-old Nicholas Cameron was declared dead at the scene about 45 minutes later, at 12:45 a.m. Stewart was found in the lift of the building, and when the police found him, they seized a black-handled knife and a hammer, both of which were covered in blood. They also seized Nicholas's keys, a black torch, silver handcuffs, and a dog lead and a smartphone. About 2 p.m. on the 10th of July, so technically the same day that Nicholas died, but also technically the day after. After being unable to reach Stewart or Nicholas by phone, Heide texted Stewart again, saying, "I've changed my mind," and that was over 13 hours after Nicholas had already died. A search of Stewart's Land Cruiser uncovered a notebook with the name of the apartment building, its address, the time Nicholas would be in his apartment, where 2 safes were located inside the apartment, and details of the valuables and cash inside. The police charged Stewart with murder. However, the link to Heide still wasn't known. She wasn't even a part of the investigation, until the police found a bank transfer from Stewart entitled Rent. A search of Stewart's mobile phone also uncovered 2 folders, one called Heide and one called Target, which contained photographs and messages that had been sent between them. They also found internet searches of the apartment, a floor plan, the code for Nicholas's key lockbox, and photographs of his dog. Eventually, on the 24th of August, Heide was also charged with murder. A barrister claimed the case against her was extremely weak, and it was thought that she would plead not guilty to murder. During police interviews, Heide told the police that her slaves were beneath her, explaining, "Happiness is your happiness. If there is anything they can do to make your life more simple, in an ideal world, that is what they do." In court, a barrister said that her relationship was a fantasy-style one of slave and mistress, and she believed that her submissive lover would just warn off Nicholas. She did not expect him to cause any serious injury or kill him. It went on to say that although she did know that there'd be some violence, she expected him to be alive at the end of the confrontation, adding claims that Heide was oblivious to the fact that weapons would be used in the attack. Either way, Heide Victoria Bos had led a faultless life. The court heard she'd suffered from PTSD after her previous partner died on a motorbike crash, and that she'd struggled with drug abuse. Then, in November 2022, Heide Victoria Bos accepted the Office of Public Prosecution's plea deal and pled guilty to manslaughter on the basis that she was complicit in an agreement for Nicholas to be assaulted. The lawyer said Heide accepted responsibility for Nicholas Cameron's death. She accepts this was a senseless killing. She feels guilt and shame that he died because of her involvement. A post-mortem reveals that Nicholas suffered 14 blunt force head injuries and 2 stab wounds. Heide Victoria Bos will be sentenced in February 2023. But apparently she was told by the Supreme Court judge that with a plea deal bargain, she'll receive 6 years, with 3.5 of that being a non-parole sentence. Having been denied bail, she's already served about 500 days, so it's believed that she could be out in 2 years. As for Stewart, he's due to face trial for murder in 2013, about May time. As I stated at the beginning of this video, much of what I've said is alleged, and that's why I haven't actively mentioned his surname. But I will be watching the case very keenly and giving updates in February and May. And that is all I've got for you. I'm just going to end on saying let's be careful what we wish for. Let's be careful what we say and what we do. They might mean different things to other people. They'd only been talking for 6 weeks. And maybe he was a bit unhinged and murdering somebody didn't mean all that much to him. Or maybe murder did mean a lot to him, but he was that entranced by his mistress. And that's what we need to learn from this. That if you are in that fetish kink community, that's fine. However, you have to understand there is still a level of love and respect in that community. The dom is still supposed to love, support and care for their sub, just in a different way. What I mean is, your dom has a responsibility to keep you safe. They should never ask you to do anything that would break the law or risk your safety. The sub's supposed to enjoy being submissive, and the dom's supposed to enjoy being dominant. That's the core of it. Don't be fooled into doing things that are illegal or unsafe, because that's the only way to prove your loyalty. If your dom is right for you, and they care for you, they won't ask you to do such things. I'll look for useful information pages to put down in the description in regards to this, building a healthy and safe BDSM relationship. I won't know all that much, to be fair, but I'll find them links. I'll put them in the description if I can find any. But if you are looking to get into that community, if you're in that community but you're not sure what you should do, there is places you can reach out to people, like, for example, FetLife or Reddit. I'm sure there's a sub on Reddit somewhere where you can talk to people in that community and you can express your thoughts and feelings and people tell you their take on it. Now, this is supposed to be published on the 1st of January 2023. So I'm presuming I've got it done on time. I would like to wish you all a very, very happy new year. I wish you all the happiness, safety and health that you could possibly have for next year. And finally, before I leave you, I promise I will make sure that next week I film it rather than record it. I really am missing interacting with you. I feel like I'm not interacting as much when I just record my voice. So I promise next week I'm feeling much better in myself. So next week I will be in front of the camera. I promise.